When people think of clowns, they think of words like scary or creepy or not funny. If you're a parent, you might find yourself saying, "Get that thing away from my kids." Or if you've been under-sedated and you're undergoing surgery and you wake up in the middle of it to find that your surgeon is a clown, you might find yourself screaming, "Ah, where's the real doctor?" due to an irrational fear that if your doctor is a clown, he might stuff your intestines full of balloon animals or replace a vital organ with a rubber chicken. In 2016, Vox conducted a poll that found that Americans are more frightened of clowns than they are of terrorism, global climate change, or biological warfare. Now, as some of you may be able to tell, but just by looking at me, I myself am a clown, and I can tell you from experience that these attitudes are due to harmful negative stereotypes, not facts. So tonight I'd like to talk about how, despite what you may have heard in the mainstream media, clowns are actually better than regular human beings in many ways. Specifically, clowns are safer, more interesting, and they represent a kind of psychological transcendence from the mundane to the sacred, which makes them just generally more awesome than a regular person could ever be. Now let's talk about how clowns are safer and better for the environment than human beings. The planet Earth is currently undergoing its 6th mass extinction. The last one was due to an asteroid slamming into the planet and killing all the dinosaurs. This one is due to, you guessed it, human beings. According to the 2019 Global Assessment Report on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services put out by the UN, roughly 1 million species of plants and animals are facing extinction within the next couple of decades due to human behavior. Now, there is no mention in the entire report of clowns at all, and that is because, despite what you may have heard about us, clowns actually leave a much smaller footprint on the planet. Now, another activity that human beings engage in that clowns don't, that's harmful to themselves and everything else, is war. Clowns don't really have these mass orgies of murder that human beings are so fond of. Throughout history, groups of human beings have gone from wherever they live to where some other group lives, smacked all the people's heads in with axes that live there, and taken all their stuff. Now, clowns simply don't engage in this kind of behavior. And even if we wanted to, it's hard to stab someone to death when your sword is made out of a balloon. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, so let's just get it out in the open where we can address it. What about John Wayne Gacy? He was into murder. Okay, he was a serial killer and a clown. But, okay, that's one clown. Out of all the clowns in the history of clowns, only one of us has ever actually been caught. And apparently we're never going to live it down because no matter how much joy you bring to the lives of children, once you stuff 26 bodies into your crawl space, that's all anybody ever remembers about you. But let's put that into perspective. 25 to 30 murder victims versus the Holocaust. Chemical and trench warfare in World War I. There's really no contest. We know who the more dangerous species is on this planet. But on a lighter note, there are other ways that clowns are better than people aside from the murder rate. That we are simply more interesting, right? Even in the mundane incidents in our lives. Like regular person drops their hat, they might get kind of embarrassed, but they just pick it up and put it on and that's the end of it. A clown drops his hat and like you reach down to get it and the wind takes it away. And you end up chasing it, you kick it even further, you end up chasing it out into the street, you're dodging cars, you finally get it, the hat is flat now. And we don't really pay this kind of situation any mind because for us this kind of high intensity drama and even the most minute details of life is just part of what makes a clown's life richer and more interesting than a regular human life. At the risk of stating the obvious, another way that clowns are more interesting than people is just in the way that we look. Now, if you'll turn your attention to the handout that I provided, there are numerous examples of the spectacular beauty of clowns compared to the dismal, drab reality of Homo sapiens. I think the images speak for themselves. You can just look at that yourself and judge for yourself who is the more interesting of the two. Now, in my opinion, the most important difference between clowns and people are that clowns represent the Jungian trickster archetype that upends preconceived notions and snaps people back to the ever-present here and now in legends that people have told themselves across the planet and throughout all times, both historic and prehistoric. Examples from mythology would be Loki, the Norse trickster god, or Hermes of Greek mythology, the coyote in Native American lore, Woody Woodpecker, the Wu-Tang Clan's Old Dirty Bastard. The list goes on, but the important thing that they all have in common is that they all represent a kind of rainbow bridge from the limited world of the known to the ineffable mystery of the infinite, from the stale world of preconception that we all live in to the direct experience of the inconceivable. In his 1990 book, An Open Life, mythologist Joseph Campbell had this to say about it. There's a very special property in the trickster. He is both a fool and someone who exists beyond the system. The trickster represents all those possibilities that your mind hasn't decided that it wants to deal with yet. The mind structures a lifestyle, and the fool or trickster represents another whole range of possibilities. He doesn't respect the values that you've set up for yourself, and he smashes them. Now, I don't know about you, but from where I stand, that is far more awesome than anything you could ever say about a real person. So, clowns, less dangerous and more environmentally friendly than human beings. Way more interesting, that goes without saying, and they represent the archetypal embodiment of everything that makes life worth living, as opposed to human beings who kind of exist on an endless treadmill of working and shopping and working and shopping and having their dreams spoon-fed to them by corporations that then milk them for their time and energy until they die. Now, if that isn't enough to demonstrate who the superior beings are in this planet, try imagining a world without clowns. A world that's like one long episode of MASH, that's all Frank Burns pissing and moaning and trying to control everything, and no Hawkeye Pierce to swill martinis and crack one-liners as he amputates the gangrenous limb of a teenage soldier. Nobody wants to watch that show. So, that's my time. I hope that you've learned something about clowns tonight, and keep smiling, and remember, once you go clown, you will never come down.